In this video, I just want to show you some of my favorite prompting techniques that aren't necessarily useful, but are just kind of fun niche things that you can do. And one of the first that we'll look at is knolling. So Knolling. I've mentioned it once or twice throughout the course so far. It's the practice, the art, I guess you would call it, of displaying objects in a flat surface. I think it originally just started as a necessity, like in, I don't know, doctors' offices, or I don't know who did it originally, but now it's kind of a trendy form of graphic design and art. So you can do all sorts of things just using the word knolling. Oh, wow, even just by Googling knolling, here's an article about Midjourney with knolling. So we can generate things, anything you want. Let's just say computer parts knolling. And then let's do something completely different. How about butterflies and insects? And then you could change the style. You could probably do an illustrated knolling instead of a photographic one. While those are going, let's take a look at another fun thing that you can do, which is tilt-shift photography. So tilt-shift lenses, as far as I understand, are a specific type of lens that have a very, well, I don't even know what the right term is, a very limited focal plane where things get very blurred out if they're not in focus, but it also has a side effect of making things look like they're miniature. So you may have seen, things like this. This is a photograph of some city where the buildings look tiny and miniature and everything looks kind of fake. So you can use that keyword, tilt shift, in any sort of prompt. Oh, here's our knollings coming in, by the way. Here's our computer parts all arranged nicely on a surface. Butterflies and insects. There we go. The butterflies and insects finished up. Some really cool stuff, and you can easily create, a nice looking blog header, for example. If you wanted to have let's say a blog post on computers, maybe not as a square, but I can upscale one of these. Let's take maybe the first one, and then let's zoom out. Let's do a custom zoom. I'm going to change the aspect ratio to something super wide, like 16:9. And maybe I'll zoom 1.5 times. And I'll keep the prompt the same. And this keeps happening to me. What are you complaining about? Zoom 1.5. That is valid. Maybe I had a typo I missed, but it's complaining about the 1.5. Now it's fine with the 1.5. This has happened 2 or 3 times. No idea. All right, so now let's try tilt shift while that's going. So let's do a tilt shift of a music festival. Tilt shift photography. All right. Another thing that's fun is to use the keyword cutaway. So cutaway diagrams are things like this, where we have an object or a place, and then the diagram, the illustration cuts away to reveal some of the insides. I had a really cool cutaway children's book when I was a kid about planes and buildings, and it had all sorts of fun illustrations like this. So we just use that cutaway keyword on any sort of prompt. I mean, some make more sense than others, but let's do futuristic shopping mall cutaway. And let's do one more. Maybe this time we'll do it on a bomber. Oh, I forgot to change the aspect ratio on that. Well, that's annoying. Darn. Let me rerun that. Custom zoom, I want 1.5, but I want the aspect ratio to be 16:9. Okay, so here's our tilt shift photography coming in. We get some really cool results. It's a very specific style, maybe not for everyday use, but this is exactly what I had in mind. These are pretty neat. Everything looks super miniature. Okay, so back to cutaway. Let's do a vehicle or maybe a tractor. Cutaway. And then if I say diagram, it will probably be more illustrated or drawn looking. And if I don't do that and I just say cutaway, it might be more realistic looking. Let's see. Here's another one that's fun. It's pretty trendy today. This form of paper art where you have different layers of paper stacked on top to create larger compositions and images. You get this nice sense of depth, but it's also still very flat because it's just colored paper. So let's do imagine layered paper. How about forest scene? And next, another very trendy thing is to do double exposures. So a double exposure is basically what it sounds like back in the world of film photography, where you expose the film to light, normally just once, and that captures your image. But there's nothing stopping you from recapturing an image on the same piece of film. And a lot of the times it looks terrible if you try it in real life, so you have to be pretty skilled to do it. But with Midjourney, we can create double exposures by using just the double exposure phrase. So these are all examples of what a double exposure looks like, where it's a combination of different images. So let's try imagine man, butterflies, double exposure. And let's check in on our other images. So here's our futuristic shopping mall cutaway. Here is the updated knolling that I zoomed out on. I'm not actually thrilled with how that one turned out. It feels very disjointed, right? Where it just kind of took the original image and I don't know, doesn't look great for whatever reason with the zoom out on an image like this. Maybe it just has to do with how it's so self-contained and basically a square. Obviously the image itself was a square to start with, but the content itself is also very much a square. Here is our cool cutaways of tractors. So we're seeing some of the internals in there. And now my double exposure man with butterflies is coming in. All right. Next, pixel art. Pretty self-explanatory, but you can do some fun things here. I've done a prompt, something, I can't remember exactly what it was, but I had a blog post a while ago where I was writing about OpenAI, and I did, I think, just artificial intelligence, computer, pixel art. I wanted something more playful instead of like this scary AI like robot theme. I wanted something that was a bit more, just playful. All right, so the double exposure here, this is not really a double exposure. This looks closer, and this is much more like a double exposure image. Now, we might want to try leading our prompt with double exposure photograph of man, and let's do trees. Oh, here we go. Look at this awesome layered paper art. Some of those are really neat. I think they look pretty cool. Okay, well, the pixel art is coming in. It's a little bit more sinister than I had in mind still. It is pixel art, but I might tweak it a bit and, say something like playful pixel art. So let's do artificial intelligence, playful, or maybe I'll actually describe the subject as playful. Video game style. Okay. And now here, this is a much more conventional double exposure. All of these, this is what a lot of them end up turning out like, where you just end up with two images layered on top. But this is more the look, or maybe this one, that people are going after when they want a double exposure. Pretty cool stuff. I really like this paper art one, to be honest. Anyway, so nothing exceedingly useful, just some fun things that I find, I guess, personally just pleasing to look at. I really like the tilt shift style. I really like doing the knollings. This one especially up here. These are pretty neat. That one is nice. Double exposures, paper art, pixel art, all that stuff. Lots of fun styles for you to play with. And part of the fun is just finding the right keywords and the right way of phrasing things. Okay, there we go. This is a little bit more playful and less sinister and still pixel art, although this is, I guess that's pixel art. It's just very detailed. This is kind of more what I had in mind, or this here. All right, so just some fun different styles you can try. Next, I want to talk about using Midjourney to generate logos or icons, some sort of small asset that we could use as a part of branding for, let's say should we do a bike shop or a digital ad agency? Who knows? We'll come up with some idea. Maybe we'll start with a bike shop, maybe a mountain bike shop. So we've kind of run up against the issue of using the word logo itself, which often connotes text, and we get stuck with some awful Midjourney text generation. But why don't we just begin our process here with, logo for mountain bike company, and then some style ideas. Maybe we'll do 2D, minimalist. Let's start there. Of course, I forgot to hit record earlier, because what I actually did is I reran the same prompt, but I increased the chaos just a little to 10. And I ran it 3 times, I believe, just as a way to brainstorm, right? It's a way to sort of get different styles, different ideas, compositions, and then I can pick one and maybe generate variations on it. So remember that chaos is pretty sensitive, or 5.2 especially treats chaos way stronger than previous versions of the model. So just going to 10 tends to be enough for me, even though it goes much higher than that. So looking at these, just personal preference, not really a fan of that one. This one's pretty nice. This one's nice. I mean, that one's nice. But I think I like this one. So I'm going to start by just generating variations on this, which is number 4. I won't bother upscaling it first. Let's just make variations on it there. Let's also try, what was the other one I liked? This one or this one. I don't know if I want a dark background for our logo. I might want it to look good on, a white t-shirt. So maybe I'll try this one here too. So that is 3, right? Yes, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And so you can see I got some variations coming in. Fortunately, I'm not getting any text in these. And I think it just depends. Well, it does depend on the prompt, because earlier in the course I used the word logo and got text everywhere. So some of the other things you can try is badge, icon instead of logo, because icons typically don't have text. Badges oftentimes won't have text either. And they still kind of connote the same idea, a small brand, asset, a representation of something. Okay, so this one finished up, and definitely not a fan of that, or that. It kind of looks clip arty. That one's not bad, although I think I don't know, I almost prefer the original one more. So we could always just upscale that one. And let's check in on this one here. Yeah, they're okay. Okay, so here's our upscaled version. I think it looks good. It's not amazing. I'm just kind of showing the process of trial and error. Let's also imagine that I am creating an app, an iPhone app or a mobile app that is a game, a fishing game. So let's do, or how about it's a sushi app? It helps you find sushi recipes or something. So let's go with app icon, sushi roll. And then let's do flat design, 2D, modern. Let's see how that goes. And then I'll run it again, and I'll just increase chaos and see if we get anything we like. And then as far as text goes, if we do want text in any of these, the best thing to do by far is to export or just download the image, and then use Photoshop or Canva or, Figma, whatever you want, to add your text underneath or on top. Otherwise, it's tricky. It's almost impossible to get accurate text in Midjourney. I've seen people do it, but apparently it takes hundreds and hundreds of iterations. Okay, so I'm liking some of these app designs already, or these icon designs. Yeah, these all look pretty good so far. All right, so I went ahead and upscaled some of my favorites. And I just, for the sake of time, I didn't generate variations. Normally, if I was doing this for a real logo, of course, you would try a whole bunch of stuff and variations, different prompts, different parameters, different values for stylize. But I went with this one here, and then this one here. So I upscaled those 3, and then, right-clicked and saved each image. Then I'm using Canva here to help me visualize what my images will look like, because they have a nice frame that's pre-built that is the shape of an iOS icon. So I can upload my image and then basically drag it into this frame, and I can see what they actually look like. Although, an iPhone background is not going to be dark black like we have here. But this at least lets me visualize my images with the correct border, because Midjourney is going to have a real hard time doing that. So let's do that one there, and then this one here. To take it one step further, Canva has an iPhone-shaped frame as well, where I can fill it with some background. I don't know, that doesn't look very iPhone background-like. Maybe that, sure. And then I will take my icons that I generated, and then I could place them in here. They're far too big, of course. Shrink them down to whatever size I think an iPhone icon actually is. I think that's probably still too big. But anyway, now I can kind of visualize what they might look like. This is a very trivial demonstration, but I can see which ones look good and which ones don't. And yeah, I mean, they all look pretty decent. I'd say this one's maybe a little bit too simplistic, too much negative space. So I could easily just zoom in and make this part bigger, or go back to the drawing board with Midjourney. Anyway, just playing around with generating icons and logos, and the same thing goes for our mountain bike store, mountain bike company. You know, I could take this, generate more variations, put some text underneath, or maybe I prefer one of these, put text underneath using Canva or any other application. Next, let's talk about creating social media content, ads, banners using Midjourney. So Midjourney is not going to make us a text with a nice layout, but what it will do is help us make images that fit nicely within our content. Again, I'm using Canva because that's just what I use personally. I am not trying to pitch you on Canva necessarily, but they have a whole bunch of these preset templates for this is a Facebook post. So I could pick, any, this is actually, there we go. This is all of them here. There's thousands of them on here with a bunch of different styles. But I could pick something that I like. Try one more. Okay, so here's one that I picked also that I like. So maybe I want to go with both of these. Why don't I start with this one? I guess I'll just leave the text for now. I don't have a better idea. So this is about wasting food. Why don't I now generate a nice image that could fit in there? So the first thing I want to consider is what the aspect ratio is. And I can crop it. This image is cropped, I'm pretty sure anyway. Maybe not. Anyway, I can crop the image myself after the fact, but I don't want to start with a square and then lose a lot of it. So I'm going to want a taller image than it is wide. And I'll probably go with, maybe I'll try using a knolling. So knolling, photography of food waste. That might look ugly, but let's try it. Aspect ratio will be, maybe 3 to 5 or something like that. Let's see, that's pretty tall. Maybe it will be 3 to 7. Let's see what that does for us. Okay, I'm looking at it come in. I think 3 to 7 was a bit too extreme. We'll try 3 to 5. Okay, so this was the 3 to 7 aspect ratio, quite skinny and tall. I think this will look better. Let's see if we like it though. We have the problem of the background not looking great. One thing you can try, if I want to match this background color here, it's not reliable, but I can try this. Take this hex code, whoops, right there, and rerun my prompt, if it will let me. Sometimes it does not want me to rerun it. Imagine knolling photography of food waste, and then I'll say on a background. Sometimes it understands hex colors, sometimes it completely ignores that. And then aspect ratio 3 to 5. Let's upscale one of these though and just see if it looks good. Let's take 2. Wait for that to finish. Come on. You can see it looks like we're getting some green, but I wouldn't hold my breath for that. Let's save the image, and now we'll go ahead and upload it. There it is. And then I'll just drag it in to replace that one. So it looks okay, right? It's not amazing, and I think it largely has to do with that background color. And there's a lot of choices for how we approach this. Let's see how, see, it's getting sort of a greenish color, which maybe it's just a coincidence, but it doesn't look perfect yet, although these could work better for sure. But the other approach here is to try and remove the background, although it's complicated when there's so much stuff here. Might have been easier to go with a not a knolling photo that has like 100 objects. So I can try taking this and then put it on the background color that I want, which would look something like this. And I think the colors are just too bright. I'm not a designer, but it kind of clashes with that. So then we have a whole bunch of different filters we can try and different effects. Let's see if any of them look good. You know, we can play around with some of this where we're desaturating and yeah, you know, something like that's not terrible. Just as an idea. Now it might be too busy. So let's check in on these ones. You can see it influences the background. It's just not exactly the same color. This one looks nice though, so I might just try upscaling one. And then let's try something completely different. Let's do photograph of 3 mangoes falling in air on green background. Maybe on muted green background. Okay, so here's that second attempt. And I think that this background color still looks better than this one, but it looks convincing enough. It's not terrible. Okay, I'm already not happy with the green background that we're getting here, so let's try another one where I'll replace the background. Let's do illustration. I like to use the word textured illustration of 3 mangoes falling in air. Let's do solid beige background. And I forgot my aspect ratio. What an idiot. Let's do 3:5 again. And I'll run that twice. I'll be back when that's all done. Okay, so the mangoes are almost done. Okay, this one finished up. This finished up. Is there one that we think looks better? I kind of like this one and maybe this splattery one. Let's try those two, just upscaling them. So that's 4 and 3. And then over here, I like this one. Let's upscale 3. And then of course, I'll go ahead and save these images to my downloads. And save this one to my downloads, and we'll see what looks best. I'll upload the 3 of them. And I'm just going to try dragging one in as is. I mean, it actually looks pretty good. I'm kind of happy with that. All of these look decent. But then we could also try replacing the background. Let's take this one. I'll duplicate it just so we can compare. Let's remove the background. Those splatters might trip it up a little bit. Yeah, it looks okay. And then there's our dark green background behind, or it's not dark, but a sage green background behind. We can try it on this one. Again, the splatters, though, are tricky, and this is where something like Photoshop would come in handy, because you can call out, it doesn't look great. Yeah, it's only okay. And then we have this one, which I think will do well if we do remove the background, because it's so simplistic. Yeah, it's not bad. I might actually make it all a little bit bigger in there. I think one of these is the most compelling, or even this one here. Anyway, so this is just showing how you can play around. Now it's kind of turned into me attempting to teach anything about design, which I know absolutely nothing about. But you can use templates, or obviously have your own custom, whatever you want, a layout, but use Midjourney to slot in images to enhance your social media assets, your blog post, whatever it is. In this case, it's a Facebook post. But if we go back to Canva, this is Canva. There's a whole bunch of different templates, right? If we go to social media, you could make an Instagram story post. Instagram, you could make a Facebook cover. You could make a YouTube thumbnail, a TikTok video. There's a million different templates here for all sorts of different social media. And then you can put your own Midjourney generated images directly inside. So next, I want to show an example of how I go about creating my Udemy course images. Every course has an image associated with it that acts basically as a thumbnail when you see it on, the Udemy best-selling page, hopefully, or on a Udemy instructors page. It's just what you see before you begin the course. So there's some restrictions on the size. First of all, no smaller than 750 by 422 pixels. Specifically, though, the ratio is a 16:9 aspect ratio. So I'm going to use the aspect ratio parameter to help me. But beyond that, we also have to be aware of the composition. Udemy images, there's another page where they describe this, are cropped on mobile size. So all the important content needs to go in the center of the image. And then on the right and the left, it's generally nothing there. It's empty space or like a fancy background, but you don't want to have your content extend through it and get cropped. So because of that, what I usually do is start with a square image that I like. And then I can take that and zoom out and alter the aspect ratio to become 16:9. And that will keep the important stuff in that middle square and then add on to the left and the right. So I don't know what exactly I even want. I never do for the course images. I just want something that looks good and kind of says, let's do it for this course. So a course on OpenAI, mostly ChatGPT and Midjourney. Something about computers, AI, maybe a robot. I'm not a fan of robots. Again, I think it's kind of too doomsday-ish and pessimistic to have robots all over the place with AI imagery. But computers and superpowers, so let's try something like, just start with, I want an illustration. So AI, modern, and I really like the textured look that I've been playing around with. Maybe I'll put tech in there too. And let's start with a chaos value of 10. And I'll just run that a few times. And then I'm also going to try with S or stylize, and I'll use a multi-prompt to get some different values in there. Let's try 200, 400, and 600. And queue those up. And I'll be back when these are done. We'll see if there's anything that we like. Well, we're not off to a great start. Pretty much every image is of a woman or a woman cyborg. And all that I said was AI and tech as far as subject matter, so I'm going to want to revise that. Although I do like some of the styles that we're getting here. Again, more women, more women, more women, more women. So I'm going to rerun my prompt here. And instead of AI tech, I might say, how about computer superpowers? Yep, I'll run that with my multi-prompt, different values for stylize. And then I'll rerun it instead of computer superpowers. Maybe I'll also try, what's some other imagery here? Maybe programmer, and then artificial intelligence. Let's try those. All right, well, I've been at it for 5 or 10 minutes. I tried changing it to programmer AI, and again, the subject is just too heavy on the person, which makes sense. I put the subject of programmer first. So then I revised my strategy. You can see I'm getting a bunch of these. They're nice images, but I'm just not a fan of this for a Udemy thumbnail. It's a little too dystopian too. So then I revised it a bit to be all about a computer brain, AI, circuitry. I threw in layered paper, which is one of my favorite prompting styles. And they're still kind of freaky looking, but they're getting closer. And something like this is actually pretty neat, I think. It's a little bit too scary still. So, I might go back and revise it again to say happy, friendly, playful. This one's kind of neat too. So now we're getting closer to where I personally would like the images to go. I mean, all of these are looking pretty cool, I think. Yeah, I'm happy with how they're turning out finally, but it took a whole bunch of attempts because I didn't even know what I wanted to begin with. And now it's just about striking a balance between what's too abstract versus what's too literal and therefore scary looking. I don't want to turn people off. So I also tried rocket ship computer. I was going to try something like rocket ship brain. Let's do modern. You know what? Why don't we try cutaway? And then let's play around with at least one of these that I've generated. You probably have your own personal preference. I'm not sure which one. I think I like this one. So I'll upscale 4. I also like this one. So we'll upscale 3. And I think, they're all decent. Maybe one of these here. Maybe that one. I'll upscale 2. Okay. So now I'll take this one, and I need to get it to the right aspect ratio. So I'll start by just doing a custom zoom. I'm going to change the aspect ratio now to 16:9, which is what we need for the Udemy images. And I might only zoom out 1.5 times to start. And then the other approach, I kind of like the cutaway option too. Maybe it's too heavy on the rocket ship, but I will get in trouble. I think Udemy doesn't allow any text at all, even if it's meaningless gibberish. They just flag that. I also like this one, so I'll do another custom zoom, but maybe I'll generate variations first. Let's do some strong variations and then some subtle variations and see if there's any I like, and then we'll worry about zooming out. So here's my 16 by 9. It might be too much zoom, to be honest. So I might go back to this one, run the same prompt, go back to 16 by 9, because it resets every time. It doesn't remember the prompt you had there, but then only zoom out like 1.25 times. Yeah, this one's kind of neat. I don't know if it's too freaky. But let's see what we end up with. Oh, and once again, it's complaining about my zoom amount, even though it's definitely fine. It's just some weird bug. Just have to try it again. 1.25. Aspect ratio, 16 by 9. No typo here, right? 1.25. Okay, and now it's happy with it. I don't know what that is. Okay, so you can see that it's keeping my brain in the middle like I wanted, because I started with that square, and then I zoom out. But it's adding in a bunch of like circuitry and stuff. I think that's what it is, sort of, I don't know, stacks of electronic-y stuff, which maybe I like, but maybe I also want to keep it simpler. So another option I have here is to just take the original image. If I like this one or this one, is to try and remix it to get it on a blank background, although it's a pretty flat background already. So I might just download this one, save it to my downloads, and then generate a background that I like separately. Yeah, because these are a little just messy. They don't look very good. So I don't think that's going to work well for us. And then I could do the same with any of these if I like how they're turning out. But I think what I'll do is actually generate a separate background. My background will be minimalistic. Maybe I'll do circuitry. Background, illustrated. Let's see what that does for me. And then I can just combine my images in Canva. So I'll go ahead and make a new design. I want it to be 16 by 9. I think I actually already have here. I'll just do it in this presentation because this is a 16 by 9 deck. And I will upload the brain image right here. Is that it? No, this one. All right. And then I can center that. Of course, I can remove the background. All right. So it's not perfect, as you can see here. I can go clean that up, but now I can play around with things. I'll add in my own background if I go to the elements page. I don't think I like this one. Here's what Midjourney came up with for me. This one could work. So upscale 2. But let's try running it one more time. That's the wrong prompt. This prompt here. But I'll specifically say that I want it to be a white background or light background. All right, let's save this image. We'll see what it looks like. Now I will upload this dark circuitry. I think it's a little bit too, yeah, that's too crazy. Okay, so the next thing I decided is that I really liked this image here, but I also like the background. So I did a custom zoom and replaced the whole prompt with simple background. So basically I'm essentially remixing. I'm not using remix mode, but I'm resubmitting a prompt with a custom zoom, and then I changed the zoom to about 1.3 or so, 1.25, changed the aspect ratio to 16:9, and I tried a couple variations. So this is the original square 1:1 aspect ratio. This is when I said solid black background. It's not exactly solid black, unfortunately, but it's looking pretty close to what I want. Not that one. This doesn't look good, but this one could definitely work. Further down, I mean, these are looking good too. I think I'll go with that one right there. So I'm basically just using it to extend the background at this point. I'm zooming out, but what was happening when I just zoomed out normally without changing the prompt is that it just started drawing in all this crazy stuff. I don't want that. So I tried simple background, and these are actually kind of neat. I mean, one of these could work. I don't know the significance of the trees, but they're very pretty. So then I tried zooming out, custom zoom 1.3, changing the aspect ratio, and then explicitly just completely altering the prompt to say simple dark background. And in 3 of the 4, it worked pretty well, right? This one, it still painted in a bunch of stuff. Let's take this one though. So upscale 2. And then I liked maybe, which one did I like there? I mean, either one of those could work. Maybe that one. So I'll upscale 3. And now this works well with the Udemy image rules, where it has to be 16 by 9, but it's going to be cropped to a square. And I may have zoomed out even too far. I honestly might try running that same prompt again without even changing the zoom. Where are you? Right here. I'll just say simple, dark, background, aspect ratio will be, let's go again with 16 by 9, and zoom will be 1. I want to keep the original image the same size, and then just zoom out on the sides, or not zoom out, but paint in on the sides with our dark, simple background. Although these definitely could work well. Okay, so that is definitely looking closer. As you can see, the brain thing is bigger than it is here. It's taking up more space. Okay, that finished up. 2 of the 4, it added in some who knows what, but these look good. I think I like this one, so I'll upscale 4. And then I can basically be done. I'll save these images. I might crop them a bit, zoom in, see what they look like in Canva here. But let's try uploading them. This one here. And then imagine that I'm looking at this on a Udemy course image. They're pretty tiny on the Udemy website. I think that looks actually pretty good. I like it. And here is the more zoomed in, or the less zoomed out one, meaning it's bigger and more zoomed in. It might be a little cramped for my taste. I do like getting some of this space above and below. So maybe there's a number between 1 and 1.3, 1.1 zoom out. But I think this looks pretty good, honestly, as a Udemy course image. It's very different than the rest of my styles, and I'll probably shift it over to be centered because it's not exactly centered. But I think it's cool. You get some sort of tree aspect, brain, leaves, circuitry. I don't know. I'm just playing around with it. But that's kind of the process I would go through, especially with the Udemy image restrictions where it has to be 16 by 9, but nothing important should be on the sides. So we want to have a square in the middle. Instead of starting with 16 by 9 aspect ratio, which will generate a bunch of important stuff on the sides, I started with a square. Take that square, make variations till I'm happy with one of them. So I picked one of them somewhere down here, this one. And then I used the custom zoom feature to zoom out, change the aspect ratio to 16 by 9, and then change the entire prompt, right? These were my original zoom outs. They don't look good. It paints in some really weird stuff. I mean, that's kind of neat, but the composition doesn't work. So instead, I zoomed out and changed the prompt entirely. Change the aspect ratio, change the zoom. I tried simple background. Again, I still kind of like these. And then I tried it again with simple dark background, solid background. And we get things like this, where it doesn't add anything in except extending the background. And there we are. So that's kind of a long process, but that's what I do when I make my course images. Okay, so I had the previous video on generating a course image using Midjourney, a Udemy course image. This is I guess a part 2 or a follow-up because I realized it was okay, but it didn't really look like some of my other course images. So what I decided to do is upload one of my previous course images. It looks like this. and used that in an image prompt. So I uploaded it, and then I ran a prompt, imagine this image URL, and then a bunch of other stuff, AI, computer, circuitry, colorful, aspect ratio, and these are close-ish. They're a little busy though. So then I tried running it again, but I slightly modified the prompt to use the term minimalistic. And I'm really happy with how some of these are turning out. And again, I decided to try the square strategy first because remember that Udemy images are cropped on mobile. So the left and the right sides of a 16:9 aspect ratio image will be completely excluded from the mobile view. Now I can take one of these and generate some variations off of it. So you can see, the inspiration, the seed of my image that I provided. And I could control the image weight too, but I'm kind of happy with how it's not really using a whole lot of the image as far as the color palette or even the composition, but it's getting like the general, gist of the image with sort of vintage looking computer stuff, and it's all sort of 3D model looking and bright and colorful. So I'm going to I like these three, but I think these two are best because I don't know what that is, a bowling ball. So I'll take this one and I'll start by just generating some variations on it. And while I'm waiting, I'll also upscale that one. And it also gave me a nice solid background color that makes it very easy to remove and change that background color if I want to. So here's my upscaled one. I'm just going to download this. I'll head over to Canva. I will upload my image. I think I have to save it, upload my file, and then I'll just drag it in. Yeah, I mean, this could work pretty nicely for a course image on its own, make it quite large, and then I can decide to either isolate it or just make the background color of the rest of my image match this orange color. So that could be my course image right there. That's just one option. The other option, of course, is to remove the background completely. We'll see how it does with some of the tighter spaces here. It looks like it did well. Actually, you know what? We can't tell because the background is the same color. Let's go to a different background color. Yeah, I mean, it did decently well. And then maybe I like the black. Or what actually might work really well is to take this other image I generated with Midjourney already as a background in the previous video and try putting this in here as the background. Now it might be too distracting. Let me move it to the back. Okay, it is a little bit distracting. I mean, this is the size we view it at. It's kind of cluttered in the middle, but I think it could look nice if I turn down that opacity a bit. Maybe about there. I don't know. I mean, I think that's looking pretty good, to be honest. And again, just playing around, experimenting, but instead of having Midjourney try and combine backgrounds and images, it's very difficult to do. It's much easier just to get two things you like from Midjourney and then combine them yourself if it's as simple as replacing the background. So I think this is not bad, honestly. I think it's a compelling image, and you have to remember most people are viewing it at about this size here, pretty small. But there's some changes I'll probably make before you actually see the course image for this course, but it will likely look something like this.